Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Rogue One commentary here on Inside the Force. I'm Dave Cunningham here with Hannah Burr. Good morning, Hannah.
Good morning.
Yeah, it's morning time when we start doing these things, so we can try to get some of our patrons on here. All right, so this is going to be interesting because we've got definitely different views on this film. So one of my favorites, one of your not so favorites, as your shirt kind of outlines a little bit.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's just get into this. We're, of course, watching this on Disney Plus.
All right.
Ready to go?
Ready. Just let me know when. Count it
We're getting
down.
right in this thing. Okay. Ready?
Ready.
So 3, 2, 1, go. Ready?
Yeah. Three, two, one, click.
3, 2, 1, click. All right. Lucasfilm logo popping up, right?
Perfect.
Okay. Rogue One. So this film, of course, came out in between episodes 7 and 8, when after Disney Plus has, started releasing new films. And the first thing we definitely can notice, we got a lot to get into with this, Hannah, because I know I got a whole list of things. But the first thing we got to notice is there's no crawl for the first time. But this is a backstory in a sense, so it kind of substitutes as a crawl. So I was starting to think that this was kind of be the norm, right? When these Star Wars stories. But I don't know. What did you feel when you didn't see a crawl?
To me, I was like, okay, so this isn't a Skywalker saga story. Like for me, that helps solidify that this is something different. This is a read between the lines. This is a chapter. This is something like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't bother me. It just made me go, oh, this is different. This is going to be different than what we normally experience with a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, I was a little shocked by it. I thought that was an interesting decision. I mean, I get the episodic, consistency, having crawls and whatnot, but it wasn't really until Solo came out that I was like, okay, this is fine. And
Oh, really?
Solo,
You didn't like the fact there wasn't?
I wanted a crawl. I wanted a crawl.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of the staple of a Star Wars film, so it was a little odd to me that there wasn't one. There wasn't one there, but so I was, but I also appreciated the flashback of this as well, because you really don't get those in Star Wars films, up until, I mean, I know the sequel trilogy kind of started doing some flashbacks, but in all the other films, you never had flashbacks. So this was kind of a little different to see, a different time period anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, it came out December of 2016. Did you see that? I'm assuming you saw this in the theaters when it came out.
I did. I totally did.
And directed by Gareth Edwards, which I actually love Gareth Edwards. I was really excited for him to do this film. Tony Gilroy did the screenplay, who obviously is the one that is involved in the series, the Andor series.
Yes.
So, you got some connectivity. What?
I said you can tell. Like, just looking at the cinematography of this, it feels very similar to Andor.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so expectations, though. I don't want to kind of go there a little bit. When you knew or found out about them making a movie that was going to literally take place right before episode 4 and tell us the story of the Death Star plans being stolen. Because, the way this thing was marketed, which I thought was pretty brilliant. I mean, it was, there was...
Yeah, it was.
They had lots of shots of the Death Star. They kind of talked about this being kind of a war film, in a sense, the beginning of the Star Wars side of the war that you really don't see
Yeah.
But it also had, you know, new characters, and we weren't going to see the people really from the original trilogy. I mean, we get glimpses of it, obviously, but you know, it was a new characters, and even like having these Death Troopers that you see here, it's like we never saw those before. So it's like it was new stuff, but it was in the same time period that we were already kind of familiar with. So I kind of went in with minimal expectations. You know, I didn't think it was going to blow me away. I just hoped that I was more worried that they weren't going to kind of stay true to the feeling, and it was going to seem odd. And
Yeah.
so I was more concerned than I was really expecting this to be a really good film. But my expectations were exceeded, obviously. So, and we'll get into a lot of that. But tell me about your expectations.
So I'm trying to find the Facebook post I posted in 2016 when I saw the film. My expectations, I was like, yay, another female protagonist. Like, oh, a woman actually led this whole coup. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, I gotta turn that off. And then to come into this with the idea that a woman was behind it, or a woman led it. And then also, it's in the trailer when we hear everything that Jin went through and why Jin was originally arrested for this. I was like, oh, I want to see all of that. Like that's what the trailer put my expectations at, is this fantastic story, which if you read the book Rebel Rising, it is a fantastic story.
Yeah.
And then so for me, I had higher expectations, but I didn't want to put them too high because the sequels did just come out. But it was a bit of a letdown for me, because I'm like, what? Like, I know trailers are supposed to be misleading, but to me it felt like it led us down the path of one story that I thought would be great, and then it turned into like.
So you actually thought we were going to get what, more of a story of Jin.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be about Jin and how Jin went from this like person, like basically a rebel in her own way, but not like an actual rebel, but like a rebel in her own way, to how she turned to help the rebellion. And we didn't see that. She was, I was looking forward to a strong female protagonist, is what I'll say.
Okay. So basically this, I guess, this time jump from this early Jin to Jin getting broken out.
Yeah.
That gap is what you actually kind of expected to see more of.
Yes, or at least to get more of her history, get more of what she went through. Something to provide her more motivation to help the rebellion.
Yeah.
But that's just me. Don't get me wrong, there are parts of this movie that are absolutely brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
K2 might be one of my favorite droids of all time.
Yeah.
But yeah, those were my.
Yeah, I think I didn't expect that. I think my expectation was really, okay, if you're going to tell me how this band of rebels steals the Death Star plans,
Right.
because that is what, you know, I remember the trailer. I mean, if you remember one of the trailers that came out, which was pretty clever, it was the actual crawl of episode 4, and then it kind of highlights the first paragraph, because this movie is basically the first paragraph of that crawl.
This is the first paragraph. Yes, that is correct.
Yeah. So how the first battle took place, the first battle, which ended up being the Battle of Scarif, is the first kind of big battle between the Empire and the Rebellion. And because, that's the thing too, setting up this timeline is, the Alliance, which is the Rebel Alliance.
Yes.
Meaning that all these rebel cells that were scattered throughout the galaxy. We saw one with the animated series Star Wars Rebels, the Ghost Crew. These pockets of rebels were kind of doing their own thing. They weren't coordinated. They weren't
Yeah.
talking to each other. They, Mothma was out there. It seems like we're kind of probably learn more of that in Andor, but Mothma was out there trying to organize this thing. Well, finally, it gets organized. They sign a treaty or sign some documents that basically says, all right, we are now a rebellion, and that's shortly before this. That it's not like this alliance has been around for 10, 15 years. So this is pretty new as far as these people. You can tell when, towards the end when we get there, when Jin faces them about the news, is that they're still fighting. They're still acting like rebel cells.
Yeah.
It wasn't until this Battle of Scarif that really brought them together and said, wow, we could actually win this thing. We can fight back, kind of thing. So to me, my expectation wasn't, it was all really about like, okay, how'd they get the plans? But I feel like this bigger notion of the birth of the rebellion, these characters coming together, these characters that never knew each other, and it's kind of like that feeling of all these cells. It's like you got all these people that are fighting their own battles.
Yep.
But they're able to come together and actually get this done. I just thought that's actually pretty neat. And the whole thing about Star Wars being family, right? And this is that little family of characters that came together just for a few days to really change. I mean, in the end, they're the reason the rebellion wins.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's not just Luke Skywalker who ends up destroying the Death Star. He can't destroy the Death Star unless this happens. So I thought that's what really was really neat about it. That's what kind of exceeded my expectations of it. Thrawn says, I feel like they could have kept the intro crawl and the John Williams soundtrack for this movie, but I was sold on this movie from the trailers. Yes. Agreed. Totally agree. And then, of course, you have Andor there.
Yes.
That we are getting to know a lot more of now. Why he just blasted that guy out of nowhere. Because that was shocking.
That was. I was like, whoa. Guy's a pro. I don't know if I want this guy part of the Rebel Alliance.
Right, yeah.
But I think, like, we'll see this later, but I love the fact that they make it clear that there are some factions they have that are, that do align with the core, but then you do have extremists. And unfortunately, with a lot of groups like as we can see currently in our country, you're going to have extremists. They're always going to be extremists. And I love the fact that they did stay true to that reality in Star Wars. And we see that. And also, if you read the book Rebel Rising, because I think that provides a lot of context for this movie, that is, that's one of the reasons why Jin is so against joining the rebellion, because all she knew growing up after Urso basically had a system in place so that Saw Gerrera could come and take care of her if anything were to happen to him. And that's all she knew. When she heard rebellion, all she knew was Saw Gerrera's extremism. And that's why she was so against the rebellion. But we don't really get that in this movie. So it's like, okay, why is she so digging her heels in the sand about joining the rebellion?
Mm-hmm.
And so for her, it's those few things like that I feel like could have been portrayed. Like, this could have been even like a montage of events,
Yeah. Well, I think, and I agree. I think going in, you were told that Forrest Whitaker here was portraying a Saw Gerrera, which, unless you were a Clone Wars fan, though, you don't know who Saw Gerrera is, right?
I was so excited when I found out that we were going to get Saw Gerrera in this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. It was kind of one of the first times, if I recall, I feel like it's one of the first times we had an animated character make the leap to live action.
I think it's the first time, actually.
Yeah, I want to say it was, because, at this point, episode 7 had been out, but nothing was out there, and none of the series has been out yet. So, yeah, I believe it was. I believe, someone that was created in animation, made the jump, and Saul was such a important part of, the Clone Wars. But that's the thing too, is Saul is not, is an extremist, and he's not part of the Alliance.
No.
He was basically, as we kind of learn here, but again, you don't really know his background unless you're watching the Clone Wars. But even in the Clone Wars, he it's only a few episodes, right? There's not this big.
Yeah.
And that was, we were talking, this is like 19 years ago. So there is a lot of story there with Saul, especially like you said, Rebel Rising is basically about Saul and Jyn and Saul's partisans, which is a big storyline, and I do like that book. I think it's a really good book. I was pumped to see Mon Mothma. Mon Mothma, it's so weird how I still don't even know why. I really don't know why. I don't know why she's like one of my favorite characters, because she's not in a lot of stuff. And I don't know what it is, but I going into this and being excited about Andor, like for some reason, I feel like there's this big mystery around her that I don't know. And I want to know. And I
feel like Andor has made her more and more intriguing to me as time goes on.
Yes.
Going on.
Well, because again, you look at it and you see her. You were supposed to see her in episode 3, but her scenes got cut, right?
Yeah.
So, and Genevieve O'Reilly was the one that was casted in episode 3, which is great that she's actually continued the legacy of Mothma.
Yes.
But I it's one of them things where when you're watching the original trilogy, you have this kind of preconceived notion that, well, Princess Leia is obviously the leader of the rebellion, because we don't see Mothma until Return of the Jedi, and only one scene.
Yeah.
And she walks out, and it's like, well, who is this? Who is this woman?
Oh, absolutely.
I remember thinking that as a kid, like, and then of course you read her character description on her figure box, and it says like leader of the rebellion. It's like, okay, well, how did she become the leader of the rebellion? We haven't been really told that story. And so now we're getting that at Andor finally. Think about that, like 40 something years later. And so I'm drawn in by her. And I think Genevieve plays her beautifully.
Gorgeously. And also, I think a huge part of it too is that we see so much of Mon Mothma in the books.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We don't really see her in the, which, to your point is like, well, who is she?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, it's like you said with Jyn, there's a gap there of stuff we don't know about her. We don't see her. We don't know her full backstory. Again, we're getting that a little bit now, but we're only getting that still in this time period. We still, from episode 3 up until Andor, there's still a little bit of a gap there. It's like, what? When did she get involved? How did she get involved? So I'm interested. I hope we get more stories of her, because I think if she's the leader of this thing, then she doesn't get enough credit.
Yeah, that's true.
For what has happened.
Absolutely.
Now, of these characters, I know you mentioned K2 though. Like, of these characters, like Baze and Chirrut, and you have Bodhi later. I know you're not a fan of the movie necessarily, but any of these characters, like, which ones are your favorite characters out of this?
K2. I absolutely love K2.
Well, besides K2.
I'm going to have to watch it again, because I'll be honest, outside of Jyn, Andor, and K2, I don't remember anybody else.
Oh, really? Yeah, you definitely need to watch this again, because Baze and Chirrut are interesting characters.
I want to jump back and say I love the fact that we saw Senator Organa.
Well, yeah. Yes.
And then I do want to jump back to a line that I found very interesting, is that Mon Mothma said, we want to bring your father back for testimony before the Senate.
Yes.
So it's interesting that they still are trying to find a political way to convince people to go against the Empire.
Very good point. Yes.
I find that very, very interesting. Instead of the original plan for the mission was just to make everybody aware of this, and then switched to no, we have to destroy it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to point that out because I didn't catch that first time I watched this, first couple times, and so, but I
Yeah.
also, yeah, but so Jin is choosing now to go and see Saw Gerrera to make sure they could talk to this person. She can help Cassian get there.
Yes.
So I don't know. Anyway,
But
sorry. There were a couple things said there I thought would be good to
no,
highlight.
and let's go there because I think that that's another good, interesting point to make sure that's set up in this is that, again, we are roughly 19 years after the formation of the Empire.
Yes.
This in a lot again, not a lot of people in the galaxy are aware that, you know, the Sith are the ones that actually destroyed the Jedi and are
No.
ruling the Empire, right?
They think the Jedis are the bad ones.
Totally.
Well, not all of them, but
Right. Most of them, and that the Empire is, you know, protecting us and serving us and all this stuff.
yeah.
So it's interesting to me. It's always been interesting to me that Palpatine. Now, what we do know from books and comics is Palpatine has been kind of stepping into the shadows more. Like he's not like forward facing. He's not out there like a chancellor, you know, going out and making speeches and, you know, meeting people. Because since he's the emperor, he doesn't have to like win anybody's vote anymore, right? He's the
right.
sole leader of this thing. So it's interesting that he actually kept the Senate around. So there's senators still. They're still meeting. They're still debating. They're still doing that stuff, which is weird that an emperor would have a Senate still. But if you recall, there's an important line, and a lot of people, I think, have heard it now, but I think for a long time it went unheard, is in episode 4, the very first film that came out. You know, our introduction to Tarkin, he walks in and he says that the Emperor has dissolved the Senate permanently. Like the Republic is no more. Like the old Republic is no more. And so at this point, there is still a Senate, like you said, and that's what, yes, that is what they're trying to do. They're trying to get sympathy for the rebellion in the Senate so that that politically they could see that the Empire, like you said, is just the bad guys really, and something that should be reformed. So that it still is, interesting that there's a political side to this, even though it's a all-out war in a sense.
All
But
right. Is this the first time we get Tarkin?
We are about to get Tarkin, correct. So not only did, not only are we getting, first live action flip to or animation to live action as we did in Saw Gerrera there. Yes, we are getting a CG character, a CG human character, because this, obviously films were doing this at this point, but we hadn't really seen an important character like this done. And in the trailer, it kind of seemed like it was hinting that they were going to do this, but we never saw it until you see him turn around right there.
It's always jarring. I don't know about your first reaction when you saw him like that. For me, it was a little jarring at first because it is so different, and unfortunately, it wasn't to where it is today.
Right.
But it didn't bother me to the point that I was like, okay, like that's it. I'm done with this movie. Does that make sense? Like it took a second to get used to it, but then once you were like, okay, I'm just gonna get over it, it was fine. I don't know if that's how you also felt when you first saw Tarkin.
I tell you what, my first impression, like right when he turned around, I thought, for one, wow, that was ballsy.
Oh.
To CG, Grand Moff Tarkin was an incredibly risky, creative decision.
Yes.
I thought that's the first thing that really went through my mind. I'm like, wow. But then after seeing that scene, I was like, okay, I would have been I would have been more disappointed if they recasted him. You know what I mean? Like if it was a different person that didn't really look like him, but it's supposed to be Tarkin. So I applaud them to try to keep that consistent. Now, and I got this later in my notes to bring up, but I might as well do it now because we're talking about it. What's your feeling on just that? In Star Wars, I feel like what George was always kind of great at was being true to the likenesses of these characters. Right? He wasn't really when he signed people like in the prequels and stuff like that, he signed them for 3 movies because he didn't want to risk the chance that they would not be able to do it and he'd have to recast them.
Right.
So you have a consistency of this likeness because then you could put their faces on any piece of merchandise and you know that that person is this character. Now, we've seen obviously a little bit of recasting going on. I mean, technically Mon Mothma is actually recasted, but that's, she's not as a prominent character, right? And she looks very similar to the original actress who played her in Return of the Jedi. But like you just brought up, like Bail Organa just walks out there, right? If that wasn't Jimmy Smits, you wouldn't know who that is.
Yep.
So how important it is to you, but for example, but think about the other character that's in there. You've got, or maybe he's later. I don't know. I can't remember if he was in that scene, but you got General Dodonna, right? The white-haired general that's with Mothma.
Yes.
So he's a different person than obviously who played him in Return of the Jedi.
Yes.
So he looks a little different. So it's interesting that you would choose to CG someone like Tarkin, but not CG somebody like Dodonna, right? So how do you feel about the likeness thing and how important it is to keep that?
Well, I think part of it does just boil down to money. Like they were like, we have to pick and choose because, as said before, this is something that was fairly new for this time. Now we see this technology being used for de-aging Harrison Ford and things like that. Mm-hmm. So, or even aging somebody. So I do really appreciate the whole idea of making sure likeness is very much respected because that is part of it. Now, I know that sometimes society is like, oh, it's okay because this actor died, of course you need to replace them. But like even if you look at the sequels, they stayed dedicated to that. They still needed Leia in episode 9. So they went back, looked at the scenes they shot with Carrie Fisher and figured out, okay, how do we make this work for this? So they like stayed dedicated. I mean, even we see Leia at the very end. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that was Carrie Fisher's daughter, right? That they put the CGI over. Yeah. So, but
not the end of this one, but they did in episode 9. They did.
Yeah, in episode 9.
Yeah.
But looking at this, oh, that's really terrifying. I'm so sorry.
Poor Gullet.
Like that, this scene like creeps me out.
Poor Gullet. Yeah.
But I think it also boils down to a question of something that we are currently facing today, which is AI.
Yeah.
Was it okay? Like, I appreciate the dedication to making sure likeness stays so that people still see those, it's still the same for people. So you're not constantly switching actors in and out and likenesses in and out. It's very consistent, which is one of the biggest complaints I have actually about Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them and that whole Johnny Depp thing that happened. One of my biggest complaints there is the inconsistent look there.
Oh.
But with this, it does then come to a question of, is it okay? Like, is it okay that you have somebody represent someone's likeness when they're not around?
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if it's a character they played, is that okay? Mm-hmm. And so it just, it brings up that whole talk about AI again. I still think Tarkin, Thrawn Addict said, I still think Tarkin looks better than Luke and Mandalorian season 2.
I agree with that too.
I do
That's
agree with that. That also was jarring for me.
yeah,
But,
that was
but
tough.
but that does bring up the question of AI and likeness. And do people have a right to their personal look, or do they only have a right to their look? But if they play a character, they sold their right for that character's likeness.
Well, I think it all comes down to contracts, and I think that was
Yeah.
the big strike this past year, right? Was the whole
Mhm.
AI thing, and and I think the biggest thing is as long as they're getting paid for that likeness in AI, then I think they're fine. But they have to sign off on it. So
Oh, sorry, I do remember this character. I'm
yeah, no, this is a
I'm one with
great
the
scene.
force and the force is with me. I am one with the force and the force is with me.
Yes.
Which is a mantra that
So
bugs
so let's wait a minute. So
me.
when's the last time you watched this movie?
A couple years ago.
Just a couple? It
Yeah,
seems like a lot longer than that.
it was just a couple. Well, I respect this movie, and I actually thoroughly do enjoy the whole heist sequence.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoy that. The biggest problem and the reason why I don't like these movies is character and Jin's character. Like that's just
Okay.
and that as a woman I'm like of course I want to see a Star Wars movie with a strong female lead. We see it with Amidala, we see it with Leia, and I was excited to get it with Jin.
Yeah.
And I think it also it comes on the tail of them trying to do that with Rey, and it just wasn't as successful as Leia or Amidala. So I think this was just also contextually just added on top of that.
Yeah. No, that's I think, I'm one with the force. The force is with me, obviously, is a line that everybody goes to chew it about. But my favorite line of his actually was what he said to Jin there. He said, "The strongest stars have hearts of Kyber."
That
And
is a great
that's a
line.
great line. The great line because it just sums up everything about Kyber crystals and ultimately I think that's what describes Jin after with what she's been through with this and
Yeah. Another one of my favorite lines, which was said way earlier in the beginning of the film, is "You're confusing terror with peace." Galen Erso said that you're confusing terror, or you're confusing peace with terror. It was one of the I can't remember the order of the
yeah,
word,
yeah,
but that's also a very powerful line too.
definitely, absolutely, yeah,
Because I think that's also what happened with Saw Gerrera. He was confusing. Like Saw Gerrera is no better than the Empire, in my opinion.
yeah. I mean that's
I think
that's a
very
valid argument.
opinion.
No, that's definitely a valid argument. I mean, he's definitely going about it the wrong way.
And I think that's where Jin comes from. Is she's with like there she had a not a moment of clarity, but she experienced some things which I won't spoil read Rebel Rising that made her realize that Saw was no better than the Empire. Like that's literally the conclusion she came to, and I'm like, dang, Jin, you're right.
Yes.
So we're missing that piece into why she is like so without knowing all that information, a lot of her choices in this movie are to me felt like they were put upon her so she didn't really have a choice. So she's passive that way. And the other thing is I don't understand why she made the choices that she made when it feels like why would you do that if you hate
Yeah.
your father so much? Why would and you hate the rebellion so much? Clearly, why do you even help them find your father? Like I don't like
Well, she doesn't hate her father.
no, but she's just like
She doesn't know. She didn't even know her father was around really anymore.
but
Because I mean, she hadn't seen him in like 16 years or something. So,
yeah.
but that's a good. I mean, that's an interesting point because I think, all these guys I think are even. I mean, if you think about Andor, I mean, Andor's he's kind of doing his own thing, and he's doing bad things, not just rebellious things. I mean, he's almost doing basically what Saul's doing, almost just more espionage. Like no one knows he's doing it. You know what I mean? Whereas Saul's out there just blowing people up and killing innocent lives and stuff like that. But so it's interesting to see these guys kind of, come together like this on one mission. I think because they do have different viewpoints of what they're fighting for and how they're fighting. You know, because even these guys like Chirrut and Baze, who they're guardians of the temple, right? That all these kyber crystals were being held, and now there's no more crystals anymore, so there's nothing to guard.
Yeah, that's true.
But then, like, what are they doing now? And so they find a purpose. It's just happenstance with when Jin and Andor come across here and become incredible assets to the rebellion.
Sorry, tangent. When K2 slapped Andor there, that was apparently ad-libbed, and so the reason why the actor has his hand over his mouth like that is he started laughing.
Oh, really?
When I think that's Andy. No, that's Andrew Turkin, right? Andrew.
Oh, K2?
Yeah, K2.
Yeah, it's oh my god.
He's like in everything.
Yeah, and I can't believe I forgot his name.
Oh, and I love him.
Not
Oh no,
God.
Paul Bentley?
No, it's not Paul Bettany.
No, it's not Paul. It's
Right when you say it, I'm gonna. Shoot. It's
yeah.
Here, I got it right here too.
Alan Tudyk.
Alan Tudyk, yeah, Jesus.
Alan
yes.
Tudyk.
Alan
Oh,
Tudyk, yeah.
I'm so sorry,
He's K2.
Alan.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah, he slapped him, and that was ad-libbed. And so the actor who's playing Andor, like, totally. But also, I'm sorry, I'm like jumping all over the place as we're
No, that's fine.
But I did also love that, where I'm like, oh, he's blind, but he's using the Force. Like, that's the true purpose of using the Force. Like,
Yes,
so,
that's true.
So,
That's definitely true.
Kimura says, really looking like terrorists, like the Empire paints them. Yeah, yeah.
Right, and that is that's a good point too, because you know, to the average person, like if we're living in this Star Wars galaxy and all we're seeing is these pockets of people just destroying stuff. I mean, that's what terrorism is. I mean,
like they are terrorists.
They are terrorists. They are committing terrorism. There's definitely that viewpoint. I totally agree with you, Kimura, because it's such a small group of people. You know, the fact that they had to kind of scrounge around to get all this military equipment, all these ships, all these starships, find abandoned bases. I mean, it literally is the definition of terrorism. So you could definitely look at that. The only reason that we don't obviously watch these movies and feel that we're rooting for terrorism is because we know the backstory of this. We know that the Empire was built out of, a hatred and a false lie that they sold to the galaxy about the Jedi.
Yes.
So if you didn't know that, if you're the average person living in this galaxy, it's like, yes, these are terrorists.
And unfortunately, those terrorists, like Saw Gerrera, were lumped in with the other rebellion cells.
That's right. That's true. That's definitely true. Which is amazing to think, like, what's Hannah's dog's name?
Allie.
Allie. Yeah. I won't let my dogs in here. My two dogs. I got two Bostons.
We have a huge open space living situation, so.
Oh yeah.
I think she saw a SQUIRREL outside the window.
Yeah. So that is a good point.
Oh yeah. Thank you. Yes, she's very, very cute. I like her a lot.
The dog. I'm still trying to convince my wife to get one.
Oh.
Yeah, we got two, Thrawn. We got two, and if you want a suggestion, Thrawn, I would say Boston Terrier, just because they're small dogs, they're great family dogs, they're great with kids, they don't shed, easily trainable, very, very smart, and all they want to do is snuggle you. So you might be annoyed with them at some point because all they want to do is lay on you. But
For me,
I got a boy Boston that's about 30 pounds, and the girls, I've had two girls, one Miley that passed away a few years ago. We have one named Pepper now that's only about 21 pounds. So if you get a girl, they're a lot smaller, and anyway. That's what I would say. Allie's a big dog, so yeah.
she's not a big dog. She's average size. She's about the size of a mini Australian Shepherd.
Yeah, but how many pounds is she?
40.
40? Really? God, she looks a lot more than that.
Well, that's because she's fluffy.
Barley's 30.
No,
pounds,
she's 40.
And he's like a lot smaller than that.
No, she has a lot of hair. She does shed a lot, but she's a border collie Australian mix, we think. But we don't know because we adopted her. She was abandoned on the side of the road at 2 months old with her two brothers. And there are signs that she experienced some abuse from her owner.
Oh, sure. Well, that right there is abuse.
Yeah. No, she was kicked. There's evidence that she was kicked. But now she's with us for almost 5 years. Got her right before the pandemic.
Yeah. I got my two right after 2021, January 2021, so right after towards the end of it. Mm-hmm. All right. So I think that's, I think those are good details that, everybody's bringing up as far as the status of and the viewpoint of Empire versus Rebellion, because it really comes down to the age-old line of Star Wars, which is, a certain point of view. It really does matter where you're coming from, what experiences that you've had, what you know about the facts and the truth about these people. And, there's an argument to be made either way. You can't really argue somebody that says that the Rebellion are a bunch of terrorists, and you can't really argue anybody that says the Empire is helping me, because what I thought was great about, like, you go back to Bad Batch, you have these stormtroopers, these guys joining the stormtrooper corps because they can't find a job, they can't make a living wage. So what's the Empire do? Oh, they're giving me a job, they're giving me a bed, they're giving me food. It's like they are loyal to the Empire because the Empire's helping them. So it's not this thing where everybody in the Empire is bad. I mean, most of the people in the Empire think that this is a good thing. We're keeping the galaxy at peace. We're, providing jobs. We're providing food and shelter to people. It's like, so you have this loyalty. You do have millions of people that work for the Empire that are very loyal to the Empire. So,
yeah.
And no one really talks about, again, like, how many people died on that Death Star that Luke Skywalker blew up, because not all of them were evil. In fact, the majority of them were not evil, probably. Mm-hmm. Right? So, I mean, that's that's pretty bad. I feel like the people, just in comparison, I feel like the people on Starkiller Base in Episode 7, I feel like they were more evil.
Oh, yeah.
Because those people had to choose to be a part of the First Order, and they weren't manipulated. They were like, no, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be behind mass killing people. So anyway.
Horrific. Absolutely horrific.
Thrawn says, that's why I like the stories of people from the Empire defecting once they realized the dream they were sold is false. That's true.
It's very true. And there are a lot of those stories.
One real good, big one, awesome one, is that Lost Stars.
Oh.
Where you see kind of both sides of it. That's a really good story.
That's a great story.
Oh, yeah, Kamara read it. Good. Yeah, it is fantastic.
It's up there with my favorites.
Yeah, absolutely. So I thought this was interesting. Go ahead.
Oh, I was about to say, before we get to this scene, we just did the scene between Jin and Saul with their reunion. And, so we got a little bit of Jin's past there, you abandoned me, you trained me, sure, but and he's like, I cared for you, da-da-da. And then he's like, what do you want, Jin? And she's like, they just wanted an introduction, I'm out.
Yeah, yeah.
And she's like, the rebellion only brought me pain. And it's like, okay, well, Give me a little more of that. And why all of a sudden are you just like, oh, I just want this introduction? So you're not motivated to see your father again. You're not like Jin confuses me a lot. But after reading the book, I feel a lot better about Jin.
Yeah, so let's go there because I think that's interesting to say is because when I first watched this, obviously you really didn't have much backstory. In fact, and then I did a commentary on this leading up to episode 8. So it had been less than a year since it came out. There still weren't any really books about this thing or backstory. So there is a whole different perspective now when you watch this film. Is that so? You're saying that has helped at all?
It has helped tremendously. Because I'm like, okay, now I get Jin. Now I understand the choices she made. I just wish the more and more that I'm reading the books and then seeing these movies, the more and more I'm realizing that I really don't like the fact that you're reading books to fill in the blank.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't like that. Because not everybody likes reading. Not everybody has the time to read. You shouldn't. Now, I think it's different in certain cases. Like the comics fill in blanks between episodes, like of New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. But you don't necessarily need those.
No.
You need to read Rebel Rising before seeing Rogue One if you want to truly understand Jin. That's when I have an issue with it.
Yeah, very similar to Shadow of the Sith. Right?
Yes, that was the next example I was going to say, is you need Shadow of the Sith to understand the entire sequels.
Yes.
Not just one, all 3. You need Shadow of the Sith. And you also need the novelization of each of those to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's...
Yeah, and that was... thanks, Kimura.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Get to those monsters.
That's so good. Give us a light out of Disney show. Yeah.
No, that's true. I think that they have relied a little bit more on the publication side of these novels and books and in comics to fill in the gaps, which I think is. I don't know if they're doing that consciously or they're just kind of reacting to, once it's out, it's like, oh wait, we didn't really explain what happened here. We didn't just probably do that,
Yeah, but it's not good that they didn't think that through,
No, because the first 2 trilogies of films, I feel like you don't, like you said, you have everything in there. Like you can go and read those comics in between films to get more of it, but you don't need them. The prequels, like there's a 10-year gap between episodes 1 and 2. I don't feel like you're missing. You have to know something going into episode 2 because it picks up relatively right where it should, and you're kind of told. They cleverly put enough in the crawl, to get you caught up, right? And so you're not. I mean, yes, there's stories in there, but they're not as impactful.
No.
I was gonna say in this scene real quick. It was interesting that because if you remember, in episode 4, Alderaan, the destruction of Alderaan was supposedly the first test of the Death Star.
That's what confused me about this.
Yeah, well, they hid it in a way to say this is only a small like what they say, single reactor ignition. Sure. So it wasn't the full power of it. Like Alderaan was the first full power demonstration. So that's how they kind of hid the fact that which I thought was clever. Actually, I thought that was pretty clever. And to see what a single reaction still does, like, I mean, it still technically destroys the planet in a sense. I mean, it destroys a city that stretches out for miles, but.
And earlier, like before running away and, Saw watching that video and all of that, or that message from Galen. And he's telling her, I do have to say this, Jin, the actress who plays Jin, is spectacular.
Yeah.
And just looking at her father's
that's Felicity Jones. Yeah, yeah, I thought she did a great job too. I did. I think everybody in here did a great job.
Oh yeah, no, the casting was great, and then like just the fact of her being like, wait, he is actually alive, because she's like, I like to think of him dead. She's like, wait, he's alive. Wait, he's been a double agent against the Empire this entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, these are where the plans are. So, like, I think and that's just a great moment for her to understand what's going on and to understand what's at stake, etc., etc. Oh.
And see, and like with this scene, I feel like, for one, I mean, the CG and the cinematography are just incredible. Like, this is
absolutely.
So, and I thought really what this film did a good job of, especially starting right here with the escape here of Jeddah. I really did think this film did a good job in, to me, is like the, what do you call it? The, like the out of time type of scenarios. Like, the edge of your seat, like, are they gonna make it? Are they all gonna make it? It's like, I mean, I did go into this thinking that most of them, I didn't know about all of them. I knew most of them were going to die, right? Because you don't really hear about them beyond this. Yeah. So I really didn't think all of them were going to, but I did think most of them were going to. So each time, and again, that's what the beauty of not knowing the fate of these characters. You can go in with that expectation of like, no one's safe, right? So I thought that was pretty neat. I thought it was pretty neat to see these different aspects of last, whether or not they're going to survive, and the suspense of that. I know there's a term for it. There's a term I'm trying to say that that encompasses what I'm saying, but I can't. It escapes me. Oh. It is a little early. But and now see, I will say, and maybe Thrawn's real good about the legend stuff. Maybe he can back me up or correct me if I'm wrong. But in Legends, before this kind of came out, it was always fully known that Tarkin was the one that really created the Death Star.
Yes.
So this is a little different now that you throw in this character, Director Krennic, that seems to be the one that actually created the Death Star, right? And you can see in this scene right here, Tarkin's the one kind of like, well, thanks, I'm going to give it to the Empire, or the Emperor. And I thought that was an interesting thing, because that to me right there, I'm thinking, okay, well, he's not going to survive. Krennic's going to die. So,
Yep. No, absolutely. And I mean, we see bits of it being teased throughout the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
Plans of the Death Star being created. So it's something the Empire, or the Emperor, knew of for a while. It was something that Darth Vader knew of for a while.
Yes.
So it's not a big secret that it was made.
No.
And it's not like, hey, surprise! It was, no, they knew about it from the get-go. But the thing is, Tarkin probably doesn't know that. Krennic probably doesn't know that. Because it could be they were just behind the scenes like, yeah, we know this is happening, but we're not telling anyone. We're going to let other people think it's their creation. I don't know. Instead, here, he just takes the credit. Yep.
Yeah, because there was a thing in the old, the books and in Legends, there was actually something called the Tarkin Doctrine.
Yes.
And his doctrine was basically spelling out the rule by fear scenario. Like, he was like, we are going to create this Death Star. We are going to tell everybody, if you're not for the Empire or if you're not following the Empire, we're going to destroy you. And so that's, again, it really started to, that was really the at the time, the description that the Empire was evil. Like, at that point, it's a little different now. The landscape's a little different because
right.
with that doctrine and the fact that you're going to kill innocent people, I mean, there was this thought that everybody kind of knew that the Empire was evil. Like, oh my God, the Empire. We're living in subterfuge here. There's no way that this should be the way to live. That viewpoint, I feel like, has changed a little bit. Like, the landscape of that has changed because, as far as we know, there is no Tarkin doctrine anymore. There is no rule by fear that the public knows. In fact, right now, at this point, no one knows about the Death Star. And they really don't ever find out about it either, because until Alderaan is really destroyed. And that's when I feel like with the destruction of Alderaan, that was really when people started turning against the Empire. Mm-hmm. Right? Oh, you're going to destroy an innocent planet like Alderaan?
Yeah. And then they're like, yep, out.
So that's when you started getting a lot of people defecting and leaving the Empire. And so Tarkin kind of, in a sense, you can kind of say Tarkin kind of messed up the whole plan.
Oh, yeah.
By deciding to destroy the Alderaan,
I still can't believe that they thought destroying planets would invoke so much fear that people wouldn't
fight back.
Yeah. Like,
yes.
Are you serious?
Had the complete opposite effect, right?
It was, okay, well, we apparently have nothing left to lose.
Right.
What's the worst you're going to do? Blow up our planet?
Exactly. That's true. Exactly. Yeah. No, that's a good point. So I do think that that has changed in Legends a little bit with the fact that Tarkin was such a and honestly, if you go see, that's another thing too. It's another, when you go back to books, there's a book called Tarkin by James Luceno that came out, and that's his whole backstory, and he does not have a pleasant childhood, and so Tarkin is a vicious character. He's just a diabolically evil guy, and he fits so well with his role in this. So it makes sense that he's doing all these things, like he's going against Krennic's back, and he's taking credit for it, and he's deciding he wants to destroy this planet and destroy that planet, and doesn't think twice about it, and but again, it's one of the things where, unless you read that book, you don't really get the full character, I mean, you don't have to read it. You don't have to, because you kind of get that sense that he's a maniac in a way with this. But it does help. It does change the perception of these films.
It does, absolutely.
And I did want to mention, too, on here that I do think that this movie also did a good job with the different environments of the locations.
You truly feel how big the galaxy is in this movie.
Yes.
And you truly feel like there are multiple things happening at multiple times across the galaxy. Yeah,
I totally agree. Because I remember watching trailers and trying to figure out, okay, well, how many locations are they at here? Because you're obviously on Jeddah, and then you're here on Edu, which is this really rainy, rocky planet.
And it's a Kyber refinery for the Imperials.
That's right. They're doing a lot of Death Star creation here. And of course, you have Yavin 4, which is where we know the base, the Rebel base is there. So I do love the fact that we do jump around and follow these guys, different aspects, different characters, different locations.
Yeah.
So the plan is Andor is supposed to go out here and kill Jin's father.
Wait, they're gonna go kill him?
Yeah. So this is where Andor makes his decisions. Yeah, this is where Andor changes.
Yeah, because he is originally going to go kill her father, but she's like, no, you're wrong about him. He risked his life to help the
Yeah.
rebellion.
So
And,
she tells them about this message
yep.
that she saw, and he doesn't have proof, right? So, but he was given by his commanding officer. He was told, if you got a shot, take him out.
Yeah.
So he's got him in his sights here later, and it's like that's where kind of he starts to believe Jin and not want to be that guy that just blows everybody away anymore.
Yeah.
So I thought that was an interesting change to believe somebody. I mean, you can make the argument that it's kind of hard to believe somebody you just met versus a lifetime of war.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that should go back to Jin's reaction, and maybe that's the purpose of it, is that it's a foil. Because Jin hasn't seen her father in a while. The rebellion and the alliance and the Imperials both were awful with her. Like, she had a horrific experience growing up, seeing both sides. Mm-hmm. And so it's interesting though that one message from her father makes her all of a sudden have this hope and be like, we can actually do this, when she went through so much and she's seen the extremists of both sides. Meanwhile, he hears it from her and he's like, well, I don't even know if I can trust you with this. So I wonder if there's like a foil thing going on there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, what it is crazy to think, like, it's one thing to, obviously what Jin's father explained was that I put this flaw in the Death Star.
Yeah.
You can destroy this thing. But if you think about how, you watch episode 4 and you're like, how to do it. It's the odds. You have to have the Force. I mean, obviously that's what Luke used, right?
And which makes me go, but it had to be like that. Like, it had to have those high odds of not succeeding in order to hide it appropriately.
Absolutely.
Which is why I actually love. There's a series on YouTube called "How It Should Have Ended," where they make, and they're like, "Nope, and Empire Strikes Back, or it's Return of the Jedi. Now, did we recreate the Death Star and not have a port because that was a huge flaw in the first plan? Nope, sure, no port at all. Great. Instead, we have this really large hole that an entire spaceship can fly through. Great.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. But they put a shield around it, right? They didn't think they could ever go down, but it did go down. But that's true. But the thing about it is think about what Galen's thinking, though. Galen's thinking, I'm going to put this flaw in here that's not detectable.
Yes.
But if you don't use the Force like Luke did, it's an impossible shot. It is literally an impossible shot.
So do you think Galen was relying on the fact that someone with the Force would...
I don't know. That's my question. It's like, how did he think anybody could actually do this? I know it's a hard, so think about the odds of just doing that. And then on top of that, you have this movie where you have the odds of, what's the odds of them actually finding the plans and getting the plans?
That is true too. Like, it's like, I got nothing. There's so many weird things with it.
Well, it is, and it shows you. I mean, it obviously illustrates the human spirit, right? The will and the hope that things can be good and can be better against impossible. And we're talking impossible odds. Like, these are. It's like it's almost like Marvel. It's almost like Avengers Endgame, where like you have all these different scenarios, but only one. Doctor Strange says only one that actually works in our favor. Yeah. This is it. There's only one scenario in all of Star Wars that these can work out the way it did, that the Death Star can actually be destroyed by Luke in Episode 4. I mean, it's pretty amazing. But it's also, that's what makes it good too. That it's impossible that they did this, and they actually did it.
Yeah.
Now tell me your thoughts, because I always, and you probably heard me say this, now that this movie is out there, and the fact that it like truly butts up against episode 4, I actually characterize this in episode 4 as one movie.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you look at it that way, it's a lot more complete in my view, in a sense. What do you think about that? Because not everybody knows this either, but you actually mentioned, like, should we actually just do these two commentaries together?
You always say, like, oh, they're one and the same movie, like they could be one movie. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think you need a moment to exhale after that ending. Like, you just do, because
literally the next scene is the beginning of episode 4.
I know that, but you need a moment to exhale and then dive into the next movie. Like, that's how it is for me, is that you need a moment to exhale.
Yeah. I don't know, because if you think about the structure of storytelling, right? In a sense, it's the beginning of this movie is all the very first scene, even though it's a flashback, right? It's like a 10-year flashback or something like that. The flashback is about Krennic going to Galen saying, we have to complete the mission. We have to complete the project, the Death Star. The Death Star is kind of the focal point of this whole film. But it's also the focal point of A New Hope. So if you think about it, it's like the beginning of this film is we have to finish completion of the Death Star.
Yeah.
The end of episode 4 is the destruction of this completed it's like,
no, I understand that.
It's like the whole storyline of this thing getting completed, but the rebels banding together to be able to destroy it.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting, and that's what I think is so good about this thing, is that I feel like they successfully made it fit within that original trilogy universe, and it's not jarring, like you said, jarring. I know you need to take a breath maybe to get into episode 4.
Yeah.
But to me, I was always worried about, well, am I going to watch this and think that it's a completely different timeline? If it's going to look so much different, you know what I mean, as I go into episode 4? And I don't think it does. I think they did a great job with the production design and the way that, the X-Wings are X-Wings, and everything looks good. Technology, you're always worried about technology making it look like different eras or something like that.
That is true. Like, I think the thing is, you could, but it's a lot to take in.
You could what? You
could go from this right into 4.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I agree with you there. I just don't know if...
I mean, but you're looking at a 4.5-hour movie, roughly, so I get it.
It's already, extended edition Lord of the Rings. Like, that's what you're looking at.
And I think I could be wrong about this, but I think somebody on YouTube did cut it together as one movie.
Oh!
So it skips the crawl, because you don't need the crawl anymore.
No, you don't. Just jump right in. But that's, like, the beautiful part about the Skywalker Saga stuff, is the crawl. Like, that's what makes it iconic.
Yeah, I know.
But you don't need it. You're right. If you jump straight from this into 4, you don't need a crawl.
Because technically, they jumped to hyperspace at the end of this thing, and then it's like the next scene is that pan down to Tatooine, and the ship kind of comes in. But see, that's another thing too that I want to mention to people watching this is, so they jumped to hyperspace at the end of this movie, right?
Right.
How is it that the Empire was able to know that they jumped to Tatooine? Again, that's another thing that you wouldn't know unless you read one of the novels. So, because at this point, there is no hyperspace tracking. So they didn't know where they went. But if you read a certain point of view, the original episode 4, a certain point of view, there's a story in there about Captain Antilles, who is the captain on the Tantive 4 that gives Leia the plans, right?
Yeah.
There's a story in there about him, how he talks about that because of the battle and them getting out of there real fast, there's actually a leak in their hyperdrive.
Yep.
And so you can track that leak.
Yes.
And that's how they tracked them to Tatooine. So,
which makes sense. Like,
anyway,
I
thought that was a cool little addition to explain how they were able to do that. But
yeah.
Now I do wish Jin had a little more of a moment with her father.
Oh no, I agree. I feel like that moment was short lived, but I also understand why, because he was part of I'm actually surprised he lived as long as he did with that blast and how close he was to the center of it.
Oh,
but it was a very sweet moment,
Yeah. Yeah, it was. So, let's see. Yeah, so now we're at the point where they all know. They all know what needs to be done now.
They do, especially Jen. She's like, "Yep, this has to be done." If anything, it's because of that moment she had with her father, of him being like, "It needs to be destroyed," and she's like, "I know."
Yeah. Oh, Thrawn says, I met Mads Mikkelsen at Star Wars Celebration. He was so nice. Yes.
Oh, that's so cool! You got to meet him. I want to meet him someday.
And that was, I guess, I'm assuming that's Celebration in Europe, right?
Was that a Celebration?
Yeah, Celebration in Europe. Probably that's where Thrawn's at.
That's fun. Oh.
Now, this scene here, I will say this. I remember thinking this scene here when she's like going at him, like, you lied and you didn't tell me and all this stuff. I was this line that he says to her in a second here. I was actually thinking in my head when I was watching this for the first time. I was like, this is what I would say to her, and he says the exact same thing that he says, and I was like, wow, okay, good. I'm on the same page as the writer. And he says, like, here, he's like, I think he says, I have orders, and then she's like, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Are you at that? I'm making sure we're lined up. Are you at that scene?
Some of us slipped. I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old.
Yeah.
We're at the same point.
Yeah. It's this part coming up right here when she says.
Yeah. Oh man.
I think I might be a second or two behind you, but.
Yeah, I don't have to. So let me see if I can get a good line here.
It's the last line right here, like this one here.
Yeah.
When she says, you can't talk your way out of this, and he's like, I was going to say, you don't have to, and he goes, I don't have to. It's like,
it's like.
It's the exact same. Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, what makes. He's been in this. These guys are just now joining.
And he's been in this since he was 6. And he also kind of jabbed at her, like, at least I did something.
That's right. That's exactly right. And see, I think that's what she needed to hear too.
Yeah, I guess like she did nothing. But that's not true.
That's not true. But it's not true in the sense to the level that he was doing in a sense. But yes, you're right. I mean, she was in it. She was definitely in it. But she was in it for the wrong. She hated it. Kind of the wrong behavior, the wrong ways.
Yeah.
So Vader's castle.
Mustafa.
First time we've seen Vader's castle.
Was such a cool moment.
Yeah, and I wish now hindsight's now 2020, but it's like I wish they would have used Hayden in this.
I wish so too.
Like showing his face like they did, you know. They didn't know. I guess they didn't know they were going to do Obi-Wan and bring him back. But it's like, why didn't you bring Hayden back for this?
Yeah. But they don't show his face either, so it's like, okay, but still.
But you could have.
Oh yeah, you could have.
Could have brought Anakin back, and that would have been pretty awesome, I think. But the fact that you bring Vader in this, I think was risky.
Yes.
You know, but not as risky as it was, you know, Tarkin's CG, but because Vader obviously always looks like Vader.
You could always theoretically put someone in a Vader suit.
Yeah, there was a I don't know if you probably don't remember this, but a few years ago there was a woman that came to work and was with the horse industry, and I got to talking to her because we were doing some stuff. Yeah,
it was so cool that we got.
She knows the guy that plays Vader in this suit.
Oh, so that's really cool.
He's a guy in the horse industry, and he was an actor, but because they shot this stuff in London, most of the stuff in London, they were going to him. I don't know why they were going to him for something, but they needed a guy that had that stature, and he had that stature. He was an actor or something like that. So he's in Vader's suit. And I have his name, but I can't remember his name fully. But she was telling me about it. Like, yeah, he's Vader. His name's Daniel something.
Yeah.
But again, I always kind of thought, like, why didn't you just get Hayden to do this? You know? And that would have been really cool to keep that consistency.
And it could have been they asked him, but he just was unavailable.
That's true. I don't think he was. Maybe he said no. Maybe he wasn't ready to come back yet at that point.
Maybe, maybe that's the case too. Oh. He did.
Thrawn says, yeah, London celebration. So glad to be able to go to celebration. Next one is in Japan. Might be able to skip. I might have to skip that one. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to make it to Japan either. I'm going to wait till they come back in the States. I will go to that one, which I think will be the next one, because they've done Europe and Japan. Now they're coming. Although I've heard Japan, where they have it at Japan, is very, really, really cool. Because I want to go to Tokyo Disney anyway too. So it's like that would have been incredible to be able to do that.
Yeah, especially with those new rides that have come to Disneyland, Tokyo Disneyland.
Yes. Yeah, so I think this is a great scene. Again, this we talked about this earlier, about this being, kind of the description of how unorganized the Alliance really is. This has really just come together out of a document that basically Mothma had everybody agree to. So they have this alliance now where they come around and discuss what to do. But, it feels like most of these people still came in here thinking, we're only in this politically. Like, we're in here to talk our way into, not really fight our way. Because, they're always talking about, like, there's no way we're going to be able to win this thing now. Thinking about, the Death Star being something they can't fight. But she gives a really good speech here.
Yeah, it is a good speech.
And convinces them to fight back.
Mm-hmm.
I wish we would have saw because the Ghost, the ship, the Ghost is in this.
Oh yes, that would.
So I wish you could have saw a glimpse of Hera or Zeb, just kind of sitting back there, but they never went there. We do get a shot of Chopper at some point, but did you know that? Did you know Chopper's in this?
Where's Chopper?
He's a very quick shot later on. I'll show you.
Oh,
when he
you know
comes
what?
up.
Yeah, I've seen it on social media. People, I'm like, oh yeah, the chopper.
Yeah. He's in the background when Mothma's like walking out.
Yeah.
So what I really do appreciate about this film too is, there's, because we got about 57 minutes left of this film, maybe 50 minutes with the credits. You actually heard General Syndulla too there, did you? I don't know if you can't probably hear it, but they call, or the intercom said, General Syndulla.
I did hear that.
So,
that's actually really cool.
but the last, I will say, I mean, it's hard to draw out a whole battle, but they actually draw out a whole battle in like 45 minutes, which I think is hard to do, but they did a really good job with the espionage part of it, and then the actual battle when they show up. Now, this again, one of my favorite scenes of this movie is Andor committing and volunteering. I think this is one of those emotional scenes for me, in a way, to hear them talk about the things that they've done. Like he says, the terrible things that we've done, and they just want to make a difference now.
They want to make it right. They want to basically go out.
Now, if you see the guy over his right shoulder, if you remember, that's the guy at the end of Andor, season 1.
Oh my gosh, you're right. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
That's
Mellish.
cool.
I think his name's Mellish.
That's pretty cool.
Yes. Really neat, right?
Wow.
So, he's got to survive season 2.
Yep. So we know who's not dying.
Nope. Definitely not dying.
See,
So what? Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I think it would have been more powerful if Jin didn't give up. If Jin went to a ship and was like, "I'm going. They're not going to support me. Fine, I'm going anyway to get those plans." Versus her give up and then realize, "Oh wait, I have all the support. I can do this." I think it would be, because I feel like that's something Leia would do. Leia would be like, "Well, screw all these folks. I'll just go do it myself." Like, I don't know. Like, I wonder if that would be more powerful.
Yeah, that would have been I think that would have been a very suicidal decision.
But she already knows she doesn't think she's going to make it. Like, she's already like come to that conclusion.
Well, I don't know, because I think the whole plan was to go in and get back out on the same ship that they have. It wasn't until they
True.
It wasn't until they knew the fleet was coming and there's a battle going on. At that point, I think they knew that they weren't getting out.
For me though, this part all the way to the end of the movie, I think is really, really good. Like, I love the whole heist sequence. I love the story through that whole heist sequence. I think they just did a really, really good job with it. And roll credits. Rogue One. Roll credits.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, so watching this again, the thing is like, I've read the book, so I better understand Jin. But before, when I didn't read the book, a lot of her choices confused me a bit. So it just goes back to what we said earlier about the fact of, do you need to read the books? Should you have people read books in order to better understand the stories that you're telling?
Yeah. So you're saying this is a little bit better on your list?
I need some time to still think about it and digest it, because like, the thing is, even though like I joke like, oh, it's my least favorite movie, blah blah blah, I still respect it. I still love what they were trying to do with this. And as I said, the whole heist story is told great. It's fantastic. I also really like the cinematography of this, and after seeing Andor, I love how much matches Andor.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see if they take Andor all the way up to the point where we see him first in this movie. Or if they're just gonna not take it all the way there, but take it partially there. So that'll be interesting to see.
As far as what we know, they're taking it all the way there.
That's what I thought. So I
Yeah.
think that's really cool that they're trying to keep the same cinematography, the same look. And
Agreed.
I still respect this movie as art. It's just personally not one of my favorites. And I think it's just because I had such a high expectation for a female lead based on the trailer. And it just like, I don't know, it felt like a letdown. But I need to like digest this a little bit longer, in all honesty. Because it might change, it might not, I don't know. But I need to think about it more.
What I think would have really been impactful, and Thrawn says, "Come on, Hannah, admit it. You love Rogue One."
I do not love Rogue One. Love is a very, very strong word, Thrawn.
Yeah, I would not say
Very
she loves Rogue One.
Word.
No, I was gonna say I think would have been what would have been really impactful for Jin's character is if that scene there where her father was dying. I think would have if you would have been able to if they were been able to grab him and put him on the ship at least, and there would have been more of a moment with her and her father to talk about the things he did and the things that she thought about him and things like that. I think if there was one more scene there and then have him pass, because I also think, like, again, when she shows up at that table with these rebel leaders, it's just her word. And I think it would have been even more powerful if, they could, here's the body of Galen or so, but there's still no proof, right? Like,
yeah.
And I think that would have been a little more impactful. I think there would have been a little bit, I feel like if she had more from her father, it would have explained a little bit more the motivation to go do what she's doing now.
I agree, and I think another part of this too oh wait, sorry, I'm just listening to her little mini hoorah rah speech.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think something that we didn't really get a chance to talk over is another flashback that we saw with her when she was a little girl and she walked in on her father having a drink with Krennic and another Imperial officer, and he was wearing the Imperial garb. And I think the interpretation of that flashback is very much of he was on the bad side the entire time. And we kind of get that also in the book as well, and that's just reinforced in the book, as she thought her father worked for the Imperials and was an Imperial, not a double spy. These off on Scarif must be quite nice.
Well, he says if you were Scarif, one of the best Star Wars locations, and the whole heist battle was fantastic. Also, if you were a stormtrooper, how lucky would it feel about being stationed on Scarif than somewhere like Tatooine or Hoth? Yes.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like, look at that tropical blue water. Look at those trees. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Most of those stormtroopers probably got suntans underneath this armor.
Oh yeah.
That's
it actually, like, while your days off would be great, your days on would be miserable.
Oh right. Well, true. But not as miserable as Tatooine or Hoth, for sure.
No.
But yeah, but again, it's always great to see different environments. I think that's what I thought the poster. They had a really good poster where you had stormtroopers walking in the water on a beach. I thought that was pretty interesting to see.
It was.
I would be Krennic's best friend just to be stationed there. Yeah.
Here we go.
This is just, I mean, we're literally experiencing a battle the whole way till the end of this thing.
Like, and the whole storytelling of this battle I thought was pretty good as well. Like, it was well made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was definitely well thought out, because you had to have them sneak in this thing. Obviously they were able to disguise themselves with those inspection officers coming on. I will say though, it is a little odd that I feel like someone should have seen 4 people walk on there, but only 2 people and a droid walk off. I'd be like, wait a
They
minute.
must have not been. They must have been distracted from those gorgeous views. It must have been their first day, and they're just like, "Dang, yeah." But that is weird.
Yeah, because I was thinking that same thing. Like, why didn't it would have made more sense if like at least the droid's fine, but at least have a couple stormtroopers come back out
Yeah.
and escort you. But yeah, they got rid of those guys. But even if the security is still, it's highly secure. Like, even though they're sneaking in, there's definitely you're still running into these different obstacles, and that's what I was saying earlier. It's like I feel like this I don't know. I can't really draw the word out, but it's like these scenarios of impossible mission. It happens every stretch of the way, and I think it's really drives the excitement, and especially when the rebels actually show up there are still this aspect of this feeling that there's no way they're going to win this. There's no way they can do this. There's so much starter stories around here. There's all these TIE fighters, it's like,
Yeah. But like this is, I'm not gonna lie, this is kind of this is a very reminiscent feeling though of Bad Batch, right?
mm-hmm.
I mean, now in Bad Batch they survived, but spoiler alert.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm. That's true.
so I think that's something that Star Wars is like. So Star Wars has a theme of family, like that's
Yes.
very very clear. But I think another theme, and they also have a theme of hope. That's also very very clear.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder if another theme that, because you brought it up, is just impossible things can be possible.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
You just have to try.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that's another thing we constantly see is Star Wars.
Whatever it takes. Yes.
Yeah, that's another one. Whatever it takes.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it takes to do what's right. But
That's right.
even then, that's also, that's a little, because Saul would say, okay, whatever it takes, I'm going to go blow up this town over here.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe it's not whatever it takes, but whatever it takes on the, with the good decisions that you should do.
I think though it does say, like, because Saul would believe the ends justify the means, but Star Wars say the ends don't justify the means.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, like, so I think that's also really a powerful thought too, is that the ends don't justify the means. It's not just did you get there, it's how did you get there.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah, that's definitely true.
So,
but I always come back. I always mention about that scenario where Luke destroying the Death Star. Does the ends justify the means there?
that's always the question, isn't it?
Yes.
Because you destroy so many innocent lives that were on the Death Star because they were just following orders. But like it's
But the Death Star destroys planets.
well, welcome to war, I guess.
I
Because
know.
war is full
Yeah.
of impossibly great decisions.
Yes.
Like, because like the thing is, I think it's so interesting. We all know where we feel like a line has been crossed. Like with Saw Gerrera, we're like, oh, that's a line that's been crossed. With Imperials, for the sake of keeping peace, that line's been crossed. So are the is the Alliance just as good or just as bad? Like it's So many questions. Oh, we're good again. It
What?
froze. My computer froze for a second. Well, not computer. The movie froze for a second,
Oh,
but it's back. It skipped ahead, so like I didn't lose any time or anything like that.
where are you? What are you seeing?
Um, they're all hidden around the ship. Troopers are about to get off the ship, and they just attacked.
Okay, they're shooting the troopers coming
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's where I'm at. Okay. Yeah. Now the battle's beginning. Now they know they're there. Now they
Yeah.
are under attack, and
Here we
Tarkin's about to
go.
go. Yeah. Take the Death Star and wipe them out.
And I think we
All
missed
of
a
them.
scene earlier where Mom Mothma and General Organa were
Organa.
like, "Who's going after them? Like, are you sure she can do it?" And he's like, "I trust her with my life." Well, if you read the book Leia, spoilers, he's talking about Leia,
He is talking about Leia.
and he does trust her. I mean, heck, even in Rebels, we see she's a young girl who's helping her dad out in the rebellion.
Yeah, and she's only like 14 at that point.
Yeah, and in this
Yeah.
movie, she's what, like 18 or something like that?
18, 19. Yeah.
19.
Yep.
She's young.
There's Chopper right there.
Chopper!
Chopper.
Here we go.
Rebels on Scarif.
Scarif. Here we go.
Yep. I love it. Love it.
And you can tell Mon wanted that to happen. She agreed with them, but she also, and I forget what book this was in, but there was, and maybe it was in Blood. Shoot, what is it called?
Bloodline.
Bloodline. I think it was in Bloodline where Mon was talking with Leia and saying like, "I would love to do that, but I can't because I got to go with the majority. You know, I will not be the." I think it was in Bloodline. It might have been in a different book, but at one point,
I think you're right. I think you're right.
yeah, she says like, "I would love to do this, but I can't. I will not be the emperor. We are a new republic, therefore it's majority." So.
Right.
So, and she respected that, and that even in that little council, that little session, she respected the fact the majority said no. So she's like, now I don't think she agreed with them giving up, but
No, she didn't.
or surrendering, but not doing anything about it. She's like, well, majority said that, so gotta honor it.
And I think that's the conclusion we're going to come to once we see the second season of Andor, because
Yeah.
you can kind of sense in the first season that she doesn't think she doesn't think fighting them is going to get anywhere. You know, it's like we have to figure this out politically. I need to find the support in the Senate to help us realize, you know, how can we get the Emperor out?
I would love to know. What was her tipping point?
Well, I think we're going to get that in season 2.
Okay, yeah. I would love to.
That's what I'm saying. I think we're going to learn
Oh, okay.
in season 2 what makes her in this be like, yes, we need to fight. Like that's the only. But like you said, she's respectful of the council. So what the council majority says, you know, I'm not going to go against. But I desperately think that fighting is the only answer now.
Yeah.
And that's why we
it
see
is
in
what it
Rebels
is.
them pulling them together. Do what?
I said it gets to a point, but like, because Mon seems very, very, very firm in that belief. So I'd love to know what big thing happens that makes her go, you know what? Nope, not anymore.
Yes. And there's the ghost too,
Oh,
right there. Yes.
Rebel Alliance, here we go.
That's awesome. Again, I thought it was very clever that they took footage from episode 4 of like Gold Leader and Red Leader, and you know these guys are either old or they're passed away and they can't.
Yeah.
Just being able to repurpose that stuff is pretty awesome that they did that and seamlessly.
It's so seamless, and also with them sending a fleet of rebels from the Rebel Alliance to fight, it therefore supports Mon Mothma's line with "We lost many lives, not everyone died on the suicide mission."
That's true.
It like truly supports it because yeah, they lost many lives and they lost the key lives in who helped them get this information, but
Yep.
there were people who survived, so that helped that too.
Right.
Lab, yeah, like I won't lie to sorry, it just that part always sucks.
Yeah.
So yeah, like when I saw this in theaters, I wasn't sure about Rogue One up until they were about to start this heist. From then on, I was like, this is pretty great.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But once again, it just comes back for me to story and character. Because that's really like for me as a storyteller, that's just really important.
Yeah, but I think this last 45 minutes with these guys, I think there's a lot of I don't know, I think there's a lot of character in these.
There
right?
is a lot of character in these, absolutely, but I'm supposed to care about these characters before we get to this point.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Like that's for me. And once again, I now care about Jim because I read the book. But without reading the book, I didn't necessarily care about any of the characters that much because I don't feel like I got to know them that well, if that makes sense. But that's kind of the way it is with heist movies anyway. Like even if you think about Ocean's 11, which is your quintessential heist movie, you don't really get to know the characters really.
No, not really.
Until they're in the middle of the heist. Then you're like, oh, that's who that is, that's who that is. So that, I understand that falls within the heist movie structure. And maybe it's just I'm not a big fan of heist movies, because I wasn't a big fan of Ant-Man either.
Yeah, Ant-Man was okay. Yeah.
But
It was
anyway.
okay. I can take it or leave it, but
But like, this whole fight storytelling was done very, very well.
yeah. Well, and I think we're also I don't know, it's either a blessing or a curse that, again, we know the outcome, right? We know
Yeah.
that the Rebel Alliance does win eventually, after 3 more movies. So if you were just introduced to this, like if you've never seen any Star Wars films and you just were introduced to this, yeah, I could definitely see where, oh wait, all these characters are dead now? Like I can't grow to like these guys as they go forward,
That could be part of it too, but also watching this movie, even if you knew like, oh, eventually the rebels are going to win, you still don't necessarily know who's going to live and who's going to die.
No, you don't. But the fact that they all die,
Yeah.
it's like, well, how do they go on? Who's and of course the next movie introduces a whole new group of people that take over and lead the rebellion to victory. But
Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. If you
didn't know,
saw Star Wars before and you started 1, 2, 3 Solo, Rogue One, 4, 5, 6, like, which is not the order in which I would recommend people to watch.
Probably not, but you could if you were sitting down and just binge watching the whole weekend, maybe.
Yeah, you could. I guess you could.
Yeah.
You could have somebody do that, but still, I think I don't know. I'm a purist in the sense of I think you have to start with 4, 5, 6. You got to start with the OG.
Yeah. Well, it definitely sets the stage for everything else. It does. It does set the stage for the prequels. It sets the stage for Rogue One. It does do that for sure. But again, here's some Easter eggs here when Jen starts going through these different projects.
Very interesting.
Because they've come back and kind of used some of these.
I'm sorry. I love the fact that those arcade games where you can choose to try to correctly pin the hole over the prize and you get the prize sucked into it. Yeah.
Yes.
I love that this was like a bigger version than that. Like that's not a diss. I loved it. I was like, oh, haha.
Yeah.
Oh.
But just you're making good points about characters and growth and getting to care about them. I'll tell you what, though, I would be hard pressed to find anybody that didn't care about K2's death in this.
K2, K2 was the only character I cared about.
Okay, so what about that then? How did you get to care about that character?
Oh, I think with him is that we kind of got, I actually hate to say this, but I think it was because he was a droid. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And a droid sure, a droid can have a backstory, but a droid doesn't necessarily need a backstory, if that makes sense. Because R2D2, C3PO, you fall in love with them right away because they have so much character, and you don't know their backstory, but you're like, I don't care, I love it. I think I really hate to say this, but I think it's the equivalent of, when a person dies in a movie, you kind of don't care, but when a dog dies in a movie, you're like feral.
Yeah.
I think I have to equate it to that.
That's pretty close. Yeah.
I think that's why I cared about K2, was because it's that mindset of, oh no, a human died. Oh, that dog died. It's that whole, I don't, I hate to say that, but I think that's why. I think that's why because even though he's not an animal, it kind of falls under that category for us with droids. At least at the time. Now we know that droids, there's actually a lot more that goes into droids. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I think that's why.
Yeah, and I think for me, he was one that was very vocal about Jyn. You can't trust her. You can't. Why are you giving her a gun? And Andor's saying, basically defying him and all this stuff. Here's she goes, Pax Aurora. Here's where she goes through, because she says a couple of them that are what she says, More Mantle, which kind of stems back from Bad Batch.
It does.
And then she says hyperspace tracking, Black Saber,
which
yes, and then Stardust. But anyway, I think K2, being so defiant of Jyn, but then at the end here, when she gives him the gun, he says, you continue to impress me, basically, or I can't remember exactly what he says, but you see the turn in him in a sense that okay, you aren't what I thought you were, and now I'm here to help you, and I'm here to die for you, basically. And that's exactly what he does. I mean, he's the first of these guys to die, and to me, it's almost it's probably the most heartbreaking, to be honest.
It is,
because he is truly sacrificing himself for this group, and he doesn't have to. He's a droid.
What does he care? And he also doesn't have to sacrifice for Jyn specifically, yet he does. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point too. Oh my gosh, that whole thing was just.
Yeah, and he lays out. You always need a character to kind of lay out the final plan. Here's how you can be successful. So, I'm the one doing that before I die.
Oh, yep, that one still hits me really hard.
Tough. It's tough.
Yeah. Jeez. Ay, ay, ay. Oh boy, here we go.
Yeah, this is great. And then Bodhi, Bodhi's another one of this. He's not the greatest character, but I feel like he does an interesting turn, and he does have a good character moments here,
Yeah, no, he totally does. He does have like each of them do have great character moments, but there needs to be a through line.
Well, yeah, but also like more back, like you said, this it's hard because you almost need to have kind of like, again, kind of like what Avengers did. You almost need like their own movies to kind of see their backstories before they all come together and have this mission, right?
Which
So
you'll probably see with Andor. I wonder, you know what I would love to see actually? I'd love to see Jyn have her own limited series.
Oh, interesting.
Going through what we saw in Rebel Rising. I think that would give a lot more credence to her character in this movie.
That would be pretty interesting. Yeah, I'd be.
Not that we
Oh, yeah.
need another story in the Skywalker saga timeline, but if we were gonna stay here more, I think that would be a really, really cool one to do.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that would have been pretty neat.
And that would
Yeah.
have, like, once again, I don't like the idea that we have to see TV shows, read books, read comics to fill in the blanks sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think that would have helped.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like, I mean, you put it best. The one person that I really care about in this movie is K2.
Yes.
Everyone else, I'm like, I don't have a connection with you. And I know they tried to do that with Jyn and her father being gone and all of that, but still.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like now that I'm thinking about it, Jyn in the first half of the movie feels very passive. And then when she gets the message from her father, she all of a sudden switches on a dime and is very vocal, and now she's active.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right.
I don't know. It just,
Everybody dies.
everybody's dying.
Everybody's dying.
Everybody dies. Life gives you lemons and then you die.
Yeah. I tell you what, too, that there was a moment there where the music was like really kind of like suspenseful when they're getting ready to jump over there. And everybody's got to remember, too, this is the first Star Wars film not scored by John Williams.
That is an excellent point.
And I think the score is fantastic.
I think, like, it's not John Williams, but it's very much reminiscent of it. There are a
Totally.
lot of the motifs and the themes that he puts into it. This is a pretty interesting scene, too. I wish, if there's one character I actually wanted to learn more about, it is that character.
Which one? Cheer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the Force, I'm like, he's like an enigma. And I would
Yes.
have loved to have learned more about him.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed.
And, like, understand about that whole, like, did he come across holocrons? Did he, like, is this just like a monk thing that he's learned over time? Like,
Right.
I would love to, if there was one character in this whole group that I wanted to learn more about, it was him.
Yeah, he was very interesting.
Ow.
So just a quick hit on the composer. His name's Michael. I think his last name is pronounced Giacchino. Who I have grown to love his music. And I knew his music going into this because he's a big-time collaborator with J.J. Abrams. He did scoring for, if everybody remembers, JJ's kind of breakout was Alias, the show Alias. So he scored for Alias. And this Michael guy was doing stuff through video games first. He was scoring a bunch of video games. But he did Alias, he did Lost for J.J. Abrams. And then he went on to do several films. He did Mission Impossible, Jurassic World, some films in the MCU. He did the Star Trek reboot series that JJ did.
It's funny that he did Jurassic World when John Williams did Jurassic Park.
Correct, right? It's interesting.
Sounds like he okay.
Interesting the parallels, and then he's done some. He's done 8 Pixar animation films. He did Rogue One, obviously. He did the Batman, the Patrick or the
Robert Pattinson?
Robert Pattinson
I
Batman.
loved the soundtrack to the Batman. I actually really liked the Batman.
I did too. It was really good.
I love how
surprisingly good.
Yeah, I was surprised, and I think part of it was because they brought back the detective because Batman was a detective too. Like he wasn't just out fighting bad guys. He was trying to solve these crimes with the police.
Yes.
Like
Absolutely.
So, I'm glad they incorporated that into Robert Pattinson's Batman.
Yeah, I'm trying to see his here. I'm trying to look at his discography. So to really nail the films he done, because he did The Incredibles. He did Mission Impossible 3. He did Ratatouille. He did
What?
He did Star Trek, the JJ one. He did Up.
No, he didn't.
He did Cars 2. He did Super 8, which Super 8 is fantastically scored.
I'm sorry, going back to Up, so you're telling me he's the reason why I've been absolutely wrecked to bits after the first 10 minutes of Up?
That's him. That is him. I'm telling you, he's fantastic. He is one of the best out there. I mean, John Williams is the best out there, but he is.
I think John Williams actually has the most Oscars won.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I definitely think so. He did Inside Out. He did Zootopia. He did Doctor Strange. He did Rogue One, obviously. He did Spider-Man Homecoming, Incredibles 2, Far From Home. I mean, the guy's incredible. The Batman. Yeah, anyway, just wanted to kind of let everybody know that the scoring of this thing, I'm a big, huge fan of it, and for right reasons. I mean, this guy is incredible.
Yeah.
And we lost a couple more guys there, so yeah, you knew to me, you knew right away as soon as they started dying. It was like no one's safe. It's somehow they're all gonna not make it.
Yeah,
definitely had that feeling going into this thing. Now, if everybody, this is a great tie-in to that Corvette right there. If you remember, that's what Leia got in Star Wars Rebels. This whole Star Wars Rebels scene, and there was a couple episodes in Star Wars Rebels that was all about stealing those Corvettes. And that's incredible how they tied that in to be able to...
I love that.
Love it. Love it.
Here we go.
Yeah. I mean, even though, like you said, like we've said, it's like, even though I know the goal is to always try to make this one big universe, and
right,
everything kind of feeds off of each other, right? And it's great, but it's tough for fans to watch all the series, read all the books, watch all the films to see the connectivity, because it's really hard. But there is a lot of it, obviously, because they're trying to make this, and Filoni is the big one about that. Like he's really big about the connectivity and trying to make all these stories fit and all that stuff. So
yeah. Thrawn wrote, I think there's a Guardian of the Will's book out.
There is.
Here. Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know. Great. Another.
Yeah, I want to say it's a junior novel. It's not really. I think it's more kids based, but it's called Guardian of the Wills. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he says, I still enjoyed the score, but still needed some classic scores in certain scenes, in my opinion. Oh, interesting.
I mean, like we hear like a theme replay. Like when we first saw Vader, you heard the dun dun dun. Like, but it was just like that with a twist.
Yes, a little twisted, but yeah, some of the classic stuff would have been helpful. I don't think you could have really seen any. You couldn't really heard any Jedi themes because there's no Jedis.
No,
but
you can't.
The Vader theme, yeah, it would have been cool to get that full score in there. But you could have done the Jedi theme a little bit during when she was talking about "May the Force be with you," and she was.
But
He
like
could have done some of that. That's true.
a little motif at least.
But the main score, there's a sound that you hear throughout the film. That main score, I think is just perfectly done. You just kind of heard it there a little bit earlier there. But see, this is a good wrap up back to these characters from the first scene, right? They never saw each other in the first scene, but he was looking for her, and to come across her now all these years later, it's
I'm sorry, but
good job, Andor.
Good job, Andor, but also I'm pretty sure you broke your back when you hit that first bar.
True.
How are you walking?
Yeah.
Then again, adrenaline does some pretty crazy things to people.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, there are stories about women who've pulled cars off of their children because they just all of a sudden... And technically, your body is a lot stronger than you know it is. Technically.
Oh, okay.
No, like, it's actually a whole thing. My cousin who's a Marine, he was telling me you can convince your mind to do things you didn't realize you could do in the first place, but it's not recommended. Not recommended.
Yeah, don't go out there and try to lift a car by yourself. Yeah.
Yep. Don't do that. But if you're trying to save a life, maybe. And there you go. Boom.
Yep. And I'm glad they kept the original looking plans. From that was really key too, because I would have been.
And it helps.
Yes.
The continuity.
So. I would have been really disappointed if it was like the high res versions of the Death Star plans there or something. Now, see, I wish, like, do you see when he says there, like, there's a large object, coming from hyperspace? I wish we would have seen the Death Star traveling through hyperspace. Like, that would have been pretty interesting.
Or even just exiting hyperspace.
Yes. Like, how does it do that?
That would have been really cool. I agree with you, because I'm like, wait, are they talking about the Death Star?
Yeah, Death Star travels through hyperspace.
Yep.
Which is crazy, because where are the engines on that thing?
Yep.
But
here we go.
Okay, so we got to talk about it real quick, because I don't want to say anything when it happens, when Vader comes on.
Oh my god, I need to just watch this. But that was such a shocker.
It was.
That was a huge shocker, because you're like, oh, this is the big moment of the movie, and it's still a very big moment here, and all of this was a big moment. But then to just give it that final punch of Vader at the end, and Vader was terrifying, absolutely terrifying.
Yes. May the Force be with you. So that's yeah, Vader. I think. Up until this point, that's why I was like, up until this point of Vader, I'm thinking, yeah, I really like this film. Like, this is really good. Like, I like it. I like where it's going. But the fact that he does this at the end, I was like, what? This?
Yeah.
Okay, I get why this guy is feared. And not really people know about him, really, yet. And again, Vader doesn't really go out there and just kill anybody. Like, and you got to remember, there's not really been war going on this whole time, so he's not really doing much except trying to find. If you read the comics, he's trying to find Padme and all this stuff. But
yeah,
but he's not really in it right now until this happens. Until he finds out there's a rebel out there that destroys the Death Star, and it could be his son. So he's kind of just sitting back. But this is like, yeah. Again, even though it's a great scene, I think it would have been even better if you would have seen Hayden Christensen doing the moves, yeah, right?
That would have been really cool.
It would have been really, really cool. But yeah, there's our two leads gone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. But yeah, the fact that he gets on this ship and just goes crazy.
And another thing and quickly before he appears, another thing to help make this make more sense with everything else, and the fact that Vader knows that there have been plans to the Death Star that are on board, is because that earlier scene he had with Krennic saying, it's your responsibility to make sure there are no flaws in this plan.
Yes, right.
So, and Vader's smart, so he knows, oh, something got transmitted up. I know what it is. I'm going after it. Oh, is this it?
Yeah, this is it. And Thrawn says, seeing that Vader scene in the theater is still one of the best moments in theaters for general for me.
Same.
Yes.
Same. It's up there with Endgame for me as well. Or Infinity War.
Yes.
It's up there with Infinity War or Endgame too, sorry. It's up there for me. But absolutely terrifying.
I mean,
There we go.
yeah, if you remember, there's a book called Twilight Company. It was Battlefront book.
Okay.
And there's a scene in there from Hoth when he shows up at Hoth, and in that book kind of describes it the same way. This guy that just lights a red saber, and he's like deflecting everything. He's force choking everybody. They're like, who is this guy? So even by Empire, they don't really know about Vader. They don't. All they know is about this black figure that just can do crazy things. But
It's so good.
cue episode 4.
Woo.
So anyway, and Leia looked okay. I thought Leia looked fine for that.
It looked okay, but I think at that point we got so used to seeing Tarkin that it was like, oh, okay. I think the other interesting thing is, like, going back with what you said about how scary Vader was on Hoth, we see that even in the comics.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
with him on Hoth. It's like, whoa. Yeah.
Yes. No, there was a couple instances. There was a comic called Vader Down.
Oh, I think that's the comic I was referring to as Vader Down.
Where he just destroys like every freaking rebel around him, and it's like, he's.
There's another scene that shows his power, which is in Lord of the Sith, which you and I should do a Beyond the Saga on that one, because I did finish that book.
You did, that's right. Yeah, we did. We did need to do that.
The fact that he is on one ship, he sees somebody on another ship, and he can force choke them from that distance is nuts.
I know. Yeah, that's crazy.
Nuts.
That's crazy. Okay, so the question I got to ask during the credits here.
Yes.
Did we need this film?
Need is a powerful word, and I'm going to say I don't think we needed the film.
You don't think we needed it? Okay.
I don't think we needed it, but I as I told you, I do have respect for this film. And I did see people after watching it saying, oh, we absolutely needed this film. But to me, in order to need a film, you have to know that you need it before it's even announced. If that makes sense.
Kind of. Well, because I think after you watch it, you can determine whether or not it was
necessary or not. I mean, like, I don't necessarily think it was necessary, but I can understand why people think it is.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Well, no matter how much I love this film, which to me is, right now, it is my favorite Star Wars film. It's my favorite Star Wars film.
Okay.
I don't think it's the best Star Wars film. That's different. I think it's one of the best. But it is probably my favorite film. But I'll be the first to say that I think it's definitely not necessary. Mm-hmm. Like I said, it describes a paragraph in the crawl of episode 4. And what that crawl says is technically everything you need to know going into that movie. Now, does it help to see it? Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah, sure.
it's just like reading a book before you watch episode 4, right?
Yeah.
If this was just a book. But I think it's not necessary in the fact that you need to see this to know going into the original trilogy the backstory. I think it's just a good companion.
Yeah.
And in that sense, I think, you know, we talk about, like, we always talk about the impact of things, and, you know, I think it has a subtle impact as far as knowing, you know, a little bit more about the Death Star, where they got the plans, how they got the plans, but you know, I think it's definitely up to interpretation whether or not this was a necessary film to finish a story or to complete a story.
No,
but it's very enjoyable.
Because I think in the past, because I have seen this a handful of times in the past, I've skipped like the first bit and just watched it from that moment on, because that is great storytelling from the moment all the way to the end.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it doesn't feel like 45 minutes.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Which is hard to do, especially when you have multiple bits of a fight scene going on at the same time.
Yes. Yeah.
The pacing is key, and they did a great job with that.
Yes. Well, I was hoping we would move this up your list a little bit. Maybe we did. I don't know.
We'll see.
Okay.
Let's see. I do need to chew on it a bit. I still like.
You need to just sit and watch it again. Just watch it again, because I know it's hard when we're talking and stuff like that. But
yeah, but the thing is that, like, because a huge part of me when it comes to deciding my list is character. Like, that's huge for me.
Mm-hmm.
And
still not convinced on Jin, huh? Yeah.
I'm not, and I'm trying to take myself out of the context of the fact that I read Rebel Rising, because in reading Rebel Rising, I'm like, if this was part of Rogue One, I would care way more about Jin than I do just watching the movie alone. Yeah, so that's the other part that I'm also trying to figure out is, do I include the context of the book or do I not? Do I include the context of Andor or do I not? You know what I mean? Like, and
sure.
it's kind of hard to figure out if you allow the other pieces of media to influence your choice about a movie or not.
Right.
Do you or do you not? So it's just it's interesting.
It is.
And that's why I'm chewing on it.
I agree. Yep. So.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Thrawn, for hanging out with us, and Kamara Jade, who had to jump off, but I know we tried to make this work for everybody, our patrons. I know we're a different time zone, so it's hard to get everybody on here at once. I think I saw Darth Essendon was going to say he's going to try, but I think he's on. I think he's Central Time. I think he's only an hour behind us, so not sure why he couldn't get on here, but you know.
Saturday plans.
We got it. We know where, you know.
We get that.
Well, we had to get this one in for sure, because I know Hannah's schedule is getting a little crazy here in the next few weeks. So,
yeah.
So we'll let everybody know when we can get to episode 4.
Yes.
So our next batch of films is the original trilogy. OG. So it's gonna be cool to get into that. It's been a long. Those films. I feel like it's been a long time actually since I watched those films. I've seen more of this and the prequel. I've watched more of the prequels just because, like, you know, with Obi-Wan Kenobi and Ahsoka and all this stuff, you know, I've been watching more of those films. But yeah, it's gonna be fun to dive back into the originals and talk through those with you and our patrons. But yeah, Thrawn, any last? Oh, he says thanks to you both. Really appreciate you guys getting up early for this. Of course.
Absolutely.
Yes. We will try keep making this work for everybody. But Of course, if you're watching now, go check out our other previous commentaries. We've got commentaries on episode 1, 2, 3, and Solo out there. So go check those out.
Yes.
And we will, again, be working on getting these other commentaries done throughout.
Sorry, we could sway you on Rogue. You haven't swayed me yet. You have not swayed me yet.
No,
I just have
not
to,
totally
like,
yet. No,
because there's a lot more to take in. As I said before, it's, do you separate the movie from the books?
Yeah.
No,
I mean,
I've always loved the Ewoks. The Ewoks have always been my favorite, Thrawn. I love the Ewoks. They've always been my favorite.
Yeah, all right. True. All right, that'll do it for the commentary for Rogue One. Thanks, Hannah, for getting up. I know you're going to work here in a little bit, but
Yep.
have a good day. Only kidding. Thanks again. Always love these. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Thanks, Thrawn.
There's so much we can talk about with these. It's hard to get conversations in, but hopefully we're focusing enough on our thoughts of the films and the good deep dives into this stuff that because I'm more worried about talking about the aspects of the films versus just like the film itself, because anybody can really talk about whether they like this scene or that scene, but it's like really getting into the reasons why they did things and the reasons why we think characters are strong or not and things like that. There's a lot of talk and a lot of debate there for that. So
Yes.
try to do a lot of that with these, and we'll do more of that the next 6 films. We got the original trilogy and then the sequel trilogy. Sequel trilogy is going to be interesting. Trilogy is going to be interesting too. I think we're all on the same page though, roughly with that. But
I think we are.
Yeah.
I think we are.
All right. Thanks everybody for listening and watching. Of course, get more of our commentaries, and then of course get back here every week for Inside the Force. Take care, Hannah. We'll see you soon.
Take care, Dave. See you soon.
Thanks everybody. Take care. May the Force be with you.